Today we'll be factoring quadratic trinomials. So let's just make sure we understand what a quadratic trinomial is. Quadratic means that the highest exponent in the polynomial is 2. And a trinomial just means that there are 3 terms. So standard form for a quadratic trinomial is ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first thing you're going to do is check for a greatest common factor for all 3 terms and factor that out. Not all problems are going to have this. Then make sure that the trinomial is in standard form. So this just means that if the terms are in a different order, so if they have the constant in the beginning and the x squared term at the end, you need to rearrange them so that they are in this format. Then solve the x puzzle. And in your warm-up, you were solving x puzzles. So remember that the x puzzle we have A, B, and C. The top number of the x puzzle will be A times C. And the bottom number is your B. So you're going to figure out which 2 numbers multiply to give you the top number and same 2 numbers add to give you the bottom number. Then you're going to take your solution from the x puzzle and rewrite the polynomial into 4 terms. Okay, so you're taking the bx term, the middle term, and splitting it into 2 based on the 2 numbers you get from your x puzzle. Then you factor by grouping, which we did yesterday. So here's your first example. 3x squared plus 8x plus 4. First step is to look for a common factor. There's no common factor for 3, 8, and 4. So next we make sure it's in standard form, which it is, and then we solve the x puzzle. So I'm going to multiply A times C. So remember, this is A, this is B, and this is C. So A times C is 12. And B goes on the bottom. B is 8. So now I figure out which two numbers multiply to give me 12, and those same two numbers add up to 8. So you can list all of the factors of 12 if that helps you, but you'll get good at this and you'll learn to come up with it right away. But if we list all of the things we could multiply to give you 12, that would be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. And then you just look at the pairs and decide which one adds up to 8. That would be 2 and 6. So this is my solution. 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 plus 6 is 8. Now that I have my solution, I'm splitting the middle term. Instead of 8x, it's going to be 2x and 6x. These other two terms just come down. And now our expression looks like what we did yesterday, which was factoring by grouping. So we split the term here. And the common factor here is x. So we move x to the outside of the parentheses. And then we have 3x after you divide, and the x cancels out here, so plus 2. Now, to decide what to factor out on the right side, I'm going to divide 4 by 2. So that is 2. So I'm going to write plus 2 here because it's positive. And when I divide, 6x divided by 2 is 3x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. My binomials match. So I have 3x plus 2. And what's left in the second set would be x plus 2. Example number 2. (5x squared minus 3x minus 2). Check for a common factor. There's no common factor for 5, negative 3, and negative 2. So now we solve the x puzzle. A is 5. B is negative 3. And C is negative 2. A times C, that would be 5 times negative 2. So A is negative 10. And B is negative 3. Now what I'm going to do is list all of the factors that give me positive 10. I'm not going to look at the negative yet. I'm just going to figure out what multiplies to give me 10. And then I just know that one of the factors has to be negative to make it negative 10. So I could do 1 times 10 or 2 times 5. Those are the only two options that give you 10. Now I need to see if one of the factors in the pair is negative, how could I get negative 3 by adding? So if I make this negative 5, negative 5 plus positive 2 is negative 3. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. So that's my solution. I'm going to split up this middle term into positive 2x and negative 5x. Don't forget to write the x. That's a common mistake. Okay, now I can split this into two pairs and factor each pair. Common factor is x. So I'm left with 5x plus 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So that's what I'll factor out over here, minus 1. And I'm left with 5x plus 2. So the answer is 5x plus 2 times x minus 1. Example 3. No common factor, and I'll set up the x puzzle. So 5 times 2 is positive 10, and b is negative 7. All the factors that multiply to give you 10, that would be 1 times 10, or 2 times 5. Now, if the bottom number is negative, and I add to get the bottom number, that means both of my terms need to be negative, because the top number is positive, and multiplying two negatives gives you a positive. So it's going to be this one. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10, and negative 2 times plus negative 5 is negative 7. Common factor is x. So we have 5x minus 2. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. And we get 5x minus 2. So you'll notice examples 2 and 3 were very similar, but we had, in this x puzzle, a negative in the top and the negative in the bottom. And in this x puzzle, we had a positive in the top and a negative in the bottom. Last example. Actually, I think I'll do two more examples. Okay, this one has a common factor. We can factor out 3. So remember, step 1 is always look for a common factor. My suggestion is always try A. So a lot of times, A will be your common factor. You also need to make sure that the leading coefficient is positive. So if your leading coefficient is negative, you have to factor out the negative. So if 3 is a common factor for 3, 15, and 108, I'm going to actually factor out negative 3 to make my first term positive. So I move this to the outside and then divide. X squared minus 5x, and this is minus 36. Now this is the trinomial that I can use. So now I have A, which is 1, B, and C. So let's solve this x puzzle. A times C is going to be negative 36, and B is negative 5. List all of the factors of 36. So what can we multiply to get 36? 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. So since the top one is negative, I have to have a negative times a positive, and those numbers need to add to negative 5. So I can see if I make 9 negative, we can use 9 and 4. 4 times negative 9 is negative 36, and 4 plus negative 9 is negative 5. Now, I actually don't need to do the rest of this because I'll show you a shortcut, which is that when A is equal to 1, we can use a shortcut. So instead of factoring by grouping, I'm just going to take my positive 4 and negative 9, and I can do x plus 4, x minus 9. Now, you just have to remember that you have to bring down this number that you factored out in the beginning. So this is my final answer. If you forget to bring down that negative 3 that you factored out, it's going to be wrong. So remember, we can only go straight from the x puzzle to the answer if A is equal to 1. One more example. So this one does have a common factor, and I need to make the first term positive, so I can factor out the greatest common factor, which is negative 4. Okay, A is equal to 1, so I'm going to be able to do the x puzzle and go straight to the answer. So we have 7 and 8. There's only one option for this one because the only thing you can multiply together to get 7 is 1 and 7. And 1 plus 7 is 8. So A is equal to 1, so shortcut, I can do x plus 1 times x plus 7. And I just have to remember to bring down the negative 4. So that's my answer.